Good morning. You're listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann in the morning, where talk is real, truth is in the talk, and there is power in truth and power talks. And we believe the truth will set you free. Good morning, Melody. Good morning, America.
And good morning to everyone. We have too much fun.
We have way too much fun. We were singing to the producer before we went on air, and we got kind of tickled about that.
We were not sure about him, but we were tickled.
We were tickled, yeah. I think I heard a chuckle.
I think I did.
We even gave him a little harmony, so we did good. I know our listeners think we're absolutely nuts, but that's okay. That's okay. We got to be a little bit.
Was it harmony? Was it harmony, or did we give him some harm?
I gave harmony. You were singing melody. I was singing harmony on the last couple of notes. And anyway, it was a lot of fun. We loved Todd. We loved to tease Todd. But speaking of being dopes, because I thought, the listeners probably think we're dopey, I get a big kick out of this. Now, I didn't go back and watch the video or anything, but you know how I like to pick on Elizabeth Warren and call her Lizzie. And apparently she was going at the NSA Director Admiral Mike Rogers, and she kept talking about the DOPMA, which is Defense Officers Personal Management Act, which I get kind of put out with all these what do they call them, acronyms. They just go on and on and on. I call it alphabet bureaucracy. Anyway, she was mispronouncing it. He finally corrected her because she kept calling it DOPMA instead of DOPMA. She was calling it DOPMA, and he said, we don't call it that because it just doesn't sound very good. It sounds terrible. Yeah, I'm thinking, yep, what a dope. But I get at her and him, it's just like, oh, good grief. But, yeah, she was, because you know how she gets all wound up, so I could kind of imagine how she did with her going off on the DOPMA. She was doing it all wrong, saying it all wrong. Anyway, that's my little joke for this morning. So.
Well, speaking of politicians.
Oh, no.
I saw the interview this morning. I saw the article yesterday, didn't have a chance to read it or think about it. Then this morning I was flipping to see if anything happened overnight. I came across this, and they were talking about this person. He's in Illinois. His last name is Wolf. And his name is Benjamin Thomas Wolf, a progressive candidate. A progressive candidate running for Congress in the state's 5th district, which includes parts of Chicago, and he released the photo of his campaign website on Monday. It pictures him sitting in front of an American flag with a smoldering joint in his hand. He brands himself as a cannabis candidate, and he urges voters to support his legislation efforts in the March 20th election. He says as a cannabis user, he thinks it's important to get out front and talk about it. He realizes that cannabis can bring billions of dollars to the state. So you see, folks, it's all about taxing. It's medicine for millions of people around the country. Well, what's that got to do with Illinois? And it changes criminal justice reform, and personally, he thinks it's a wonderful recreational substance as well. He is a former FBI employee. He's a former FBI employee who holds. He said in his interview this morning he didn't smoke pot while he was this employee, and he holds a PhD in international psychology, which is really dangerous. And he is challenging incumbent Mike Quigley, that he is a Democrat also. But he thinks and he believes that you can have universal basic income. He believes you can have universal health care, and he thinks the taxes from the marijuana will pay for this. And I'm thinking free school, he's a candidate, so he has the same mouthpiece as Bernie Sanders, it's the same. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what is wrong with this country?
Well, if the cannabis
he gets a form.
If cannabis is nothing wrong with it, if he believes there's nothing wrong with it, why didn't he smoke it while he was in the FBI?
And well, federally, it's against the law. Federally, it is against the law, and he didn't smoke it then. He only smoked it after he left the FBI. He said.
Well, that's what I said. But.
And so, I mean, it's all about taxes, and it's all about free.
It is all about taxes.
It's all about free, and free school, free health care, and free income.
Everything's free in America for a small fee in America.
Free.
Go back to
That fee is our freedoms and liberties. That's what it really is. But anyway, I mean, it's just like, and this guy is getting, if he gets, I mean, if they actually go out and vote for him.
And they will, some of them.
Well, some of them will. But, I mean, if he actually gets a leg into, I mean, it's just shocking. And I know a lot of people out there think legalizing marijuana is perfect. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, it's really a sign of where the status of this country. It really is the status of this country. What are we willing to give up? Dope everybody up. It takes away your ambition. And I do believe it is a stepping stone for many to harder drugs. And is this really, truly all about taxes? Illinois is
or control, taxes and control. It's I don't know. It's crazy. And it's not really on the same line, but it is because we're talking about taxes. You remember what Supreme Court Justice Roberts did with the Obamacare and said it was legal because it was a tax. Well, first of all, it didn't come to be in the right order of things to be a tax, but yes, it was a tax. And when President Donald Trump got in and they took that mandate that you had to have it out, it no longer was a tax. So now we've got 20 state attorney generals across the country that are suing because it's now they're claiming that Obamacare is unconstitutional because it's no longer a tax. And so I don't know where that's going to head, but, I mentioned yesterday, and that was what I was referring to. I just didn't have the information in front of me. Our government's just a bunch of people suing one another up there. Of course, this is the state suing the Trump administration right now over this Obamacare, just to try and get rid of it. I guess they're going to try and get rid of it once for all, but it says the law became unconstitutional when they took out the penalty. This is Paul Larkin, a senior legal research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, and he told the Daily Signal. 5 members of the Supreme Court concluded that Congress lacked the ability under the Commerce Clause to pass this law, but defended its ability to pass under the taxing authority. Now it's not justifiable because that part's been taken out. And it was in a 5-4 decision back in 2012 that they said it was a tax, and now it's not a tax, and so they're trying to get rid of it completely because it's totally and completely unconstitutional. Of course, we know what it's done to premiums. They have skyrocketed, and families are suffering because of this wonderful thing called Obamacare that gives other people free insurance. So it's
I mean, families are paying $25,000, $30,000 a year.
Terrible.
Health insurance?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Their incomes may be $40,000, even if they're making an $80,000. I mean, how can people afford that?
They can't. That's the whole problem. And because they were,
I know.
They took out the penalty, and they were.
Well, you do have to be careful in that because that penalty, that mandate, still applies for 2018. I found out that really doesn't go into effect until 2019.
So I guess that's why they've got this lawsuit going on now, try to get rid of it before that. By the end of the year, then. Possibly. They didn't mention that. It says the Attorney General say the Obamacare law imposes rising costs on consumers and gives vast power to the federal government, contending in most states prices more than doubled from 2013 through 2017, while 70% of the U.S. counties have only one or two health insurers. So it took away competition, which is what it was intended to do. It took away competition. The prices went up, the tax went up, whatever you want to call it, tremendously against families. And it says, in addition to Arkansas, Wisconsin, and Texas, other states involved in the lawsuit are Alabama, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maine, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Utah, and West Virginia. So there's 20 of these state attorney generals that are suing now to try and get rid of Obamacare. Put the final, what do they call it? Final stake in the coffin. So anyway, nail in the coffin. So,
well, remember $3 gasoline? Well, there was an article out by the Wall Street Journal, and they were talking about, and I don't think this is any big surprise. I mean, heck, gasoline is already, $2.80, or $2.50, anywhere from $2.50 to $2.80, so $3 isn't a stretch. So I'm not sure how insightful this is for the Wall Street Journal. We continue to see oil prices climb. It's over $60. The last time we experienced $3 was like back in 2014, it was, hovering around that area. And, of course, oil prices at that point in time were, around $30 a barrel. So, yeah, it makes a big difference. It's it doesn't take rocket science to figure this out. But higher oil prices means higher gasoline prices, and of course, if everyone assumes that the recovery is going to get stronger and stronger, and businesses are going to increase, that means more energy will be needed, and of course, that's higher oil prices, and again, higher gasoline prices. So again, it's really but can pocketbooks handle that? When we're in a consumer-based economy, and you have our personal debt is at a level not seen since prior to 2008. It doesn't take big shocks to make a difference in people's to where they begin to change their purchasing habits. You don't need big shocks. I mean, that's the same way with these rate increases. Yeah, everybody says, well, big deal. The Fed's raises a quarter point here and a quarter point there. What's the big deal? What's everybody getting their little, getting all upset about? It's like, well, it doesn't take a lot to affect the American consumer because they're already so far in debt. Their wages,
the camel's back.
Yeah, I mean, it can be just something very little that can impact his purchasing habits. So, cutting back going out once a week, or maybe not going to grandma's instead of 4 times a month, maybe only 3 times a month. So, they make cutbacks and adjust. Or do they just continue to keep putting it on their credit cards until they're forced to cut back by maybe even a bigger situation that they don't have a choice? So either or, it's will dampen the economy, and we'll see how it plays out. So, don't expect just because we're becoming the giant of an energy producer and exporter that it's going to make a big difference in our gasoline prices. I mean, I think a lot of people were expecting the gasoline to go below $1.
I don't see that happening just too soon anyway. I think I hear music. We're going into a break. We've got lots of things to talk about today. 717-300-1218 is the number to call. 717-300-1218. You're listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann in.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. we believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a reestablished Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
Years ahead of the dominant media, FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
Melody and Beth Ann in the morning, and it's been quite a morning. We're having a lot of fun today. I don't know what's going on, but we're having a lot of fun on the air and off the air, which we can't always explain, but we're having a good time. Melody, I don't know what else you've got. I've got some hypocrisy that I thought I might bring out.
Always good.
Yeah, hypocrisy, that's good. Let's change the topic. Anyway, these are the teachers' union pensions. They invest in firearms and ammunition manufacturers. So here they are. They're one of the biggest screamers against, for gun control and against guns and ammunition. And yet they're making money off it. It said teachers' views on guns have been decidedly negative since 2013 poll of the National Education Association found 76% of the NEA members support a proposal to ban the sale and possession of military-style semi-automatic assault weapons to everyone except the police and military. And the public fails to notice that teachers and public employee unions, even in the progressive states such as New York and California, have invested in gun and ammunition companies, and it has been lining the pockets of the teachers upon their retirement. It goes back to their 401ks and their pensions, and so that is just one of the things that they have been investing in their pensions, which kind of is a little hypocritical. Yeah, we don't want anybody to buy one, but as long as they're buying them, we might as well make a little money. So.
Well, I think it was yesterday we did talk about the, maybe it was Monday, the West Virginia teachers went back to work. They did reach a deal with the governor on their strike. There's still work to be done, but they're going to be back to work tomorrow. They had a 4-day walkout over pay and benefits, and they're going to be getting a 5% pay raise in the first year, as long as lawmakers approve it in the new bill. And they've changed their position on raises after talking to a 6th grade grader, told reporters he has spoken to the leaders of the Senate and House and he was very, very hopeful a bill would pass soon, replacing one that would include a smaller cumulative raise over time. Okay, so this isn't a sixth grade teacher. This is a sixth grader. Yes.
He's out there plugging for his teacher. Is that what he's doing?
Yeah, the governor, Jim Justice, said he changed his position on raises after talking to a sixth grader. So I don't know if that's something
that's how it worked in my house. We sat the kids down when they were in the 5th and 6th grade and asked their opinions on how we should do this or do that.
Yeah, I mean it's but again, this is and you know, I'm all for teachers and so forth and like that. And I was talking to someone and it's like, well, their starting wages are much higher than what they used to be. Yeah. I mean, $40,000, I was told, is pretty much a basic starting point for a teacher. That's not a bad wage.
No.
For a teacher, considering you only work, how many months out of the year?
7 months, 6 months, 7 months out of the year, yeah. 6.5.
So, you know, that's a pretty good wage to start out. You know, I'm sure it varies across the country and so forth, but I think in West Virginia I was told, well, this woman, she has 16 years of service and says she makes $42,000 a year, and she wants a competitive rate with surrounding states. And so, you know, West Virginia has a lot less population, so...
Yeah.
I think $42,000 for 6 months out of the year is not a bad wage.
It's not a bad wage. I mean, they're not getting rich on that, but that's not a bad wage.
I don't think teachers are supposed to get rich. If you want to get rich off teacher, then you go back to school and you promote yourself to where you can go to work to universities, and you know, there's things that you can do if you want to have, you know, a bigger and larger payday, but.
And there's other things that they do. They can make extra money by doing summer school, working summer school. They make extra money there. They make extra money doing other things in the extracurricular activities in the school. They can be one of those that is a sponsor, and they get paid a little extra here and there. Not on all of them, and probably not in all communities across the nation, but I know that they can make extra money, and I'm all for the teachers making a good living. And $42,000 to start out, that's not a bad living.
It's not a bad living.
And when I said that's not getting rich, I meant they're not like being overpaid. I don't think that's, you know.
I don't think they're underpaid.
Not at $42,000 to start out. No.
And to have a 5% increase. So, well, thank you, sixth grader. The teacher should be very thankful to that.
I hope he gets a passing grade. That ought to cinch it.
Oh, good grief.
Oh, we have Neil in Missouri on the line. I bet I know exactly what he's going to talk about. Neil, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing okay. A little rainy, but
it is. I guess we kind of need it. It's warm though. It's in the 50s. That's not too bad.
Right. So what's your guess? What do you guess?
My guess was the Obamacare tax. That was my guess. Was I right?
No.
Oh,
I'm
man.
Calling about I'm calling about that top candidate you were talking about, the guy that's running on the top platform.
Benjamin Thomas Wolf. Okay, that was Melody's topic there. I didn't read that article. Okay.
Okay. Well,
I guess I don't know him as well as I thought.
Well, in my work with the church, I've visited a lot of prisons and jails. I've talked to literally hundreds of addicts and dozens of illegal drug dealers. Now, the drug dealers across the board, every single drug dealer I've ever talked to has said the same thing. Over the past 30 years that I've been talking to these people, actually closer to 40 years, that I've talked to these people, every single drug dealer, without exception, opposes legalization of any kind of drug.
Of course they do.
And that's because it put them out of business. They don't want pot or any other drug legalized, because then they can't make the huge amounts of money they're making running the illegal drugs.
I get that.
You know, and then on the side of the addicts, guys who were hooked on heroin, cocaine, even alcoholics could prevent or cure I guess you'd call it, cure the addiction with pot. As long as they had pot to smoke, they didn't care if they got the heroin or the coke or the crack or whatever else they were on. As long as they could get pot, it suppresses the addiction. Even the alcoholics could stay off of alcohol if they had pot.
I didn't know that.
So there's been a huge amount of study in the medical field on the use of pot for medicinal purposes, and according to the Bible, Genesis 1:29 and a half a dozen other verses in the Bible. In Genesis 1:29, God said, "He hath given thee all the herbs of the field, bearing seed for thy meat." Now, meat means food, so it's probably not a good idea to be smoking this stuff. But a 20-year study of over 20,000 people in Europe has shown zero damage to lungs from pot smoking. Zero.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't have a problem with medicinal usage for marijuana. I have no problem with that. And you just said that study was done in Europe. Well, what's their drug culture? What's their drug culture in Europe compared to the United States?
You have places like Amsterdam where you have legal, drug pot cafes. I don't know about other drugs, but there was one country I just heard of recently. I think it was Sweden that completely decriminalized all drugs across the board. Within a year, they had a 40% drop in the crime rate. They provide clinics where guys can go in and get their daily fix. They can hold down jobs. They get a dosage that's not poisoned, and they don't overdose. They've virtually eliminated overdosing. I can't remember if it was Sweden. I think it was Sweden. I don't think it was Switzerland. I think it was Sweden that did this, or maybe it was Norway. But one of the Nordic countries, and they've had fantastic.
I think it was Norway.
I think you're right. I think it was Norway. Probably keeping it under control. See, as long as it's on the black market, as long as it's underground, you can't control it. You can't keep it under control because there's always going to be somebody willing to pay somebody to break the law to bring in the drugs, either from across the border or to manufacture them in this country.
And I don't know a whole lot about drugs.
So government gets to control it. Okay.
Well, I have a question,
but they control all the legal drugs. Are supposed to be controlling the legal drugs anyway. So
the drug policy of Sweden is based on zero tolerance, focusing on prevention, treatment, and control, aiming to reduce both the supply and demand for illegal drugs. A study conducted in 2000 supported the view that the new, tougher policy had a preventive effect on drug use. A report by the UNODC praised Sweden for having one of the lowest drug usage rates in the Western world and attributed this to a drug policy that invested heavily in prevention and treatment. As well as
government clinics where the guys can go get their shots and don't have to get them off the street.
Well, it's not the same as prevention.
You're preventing illegal drug use. It's now legal, but you got to go to a clinic to get it, and you don't have all the overdose deaths and what have you with the stuff.
Now, I have a question just about addiction, because I've had family members that have been alcoholics and addicted, and one that had used the marijuana has absolutely no incentive to work whatsoever. I mean, still, and he's not a young spring chicken anymore. Still, he cannot keep a job, does not try. He's claims he's dry of the alcohol, but I know that he did the marijuana and some other things, but he has no ambition in life to work. And that's what I've always heard that the marijuana does. It just, you definitely get laid back a little bit, It's,
absolutely.
So that was my question to Neil. Is that a true analysis of what marijuana does, at least to some people?
Yeah, about I'd estimate about 10% of the people I interviewed, that's what it does to them. But the other 90%, are actually function better with it than they do without it. That you can't function if you're an alcoholic, a bad alcoholic.
No, you can't.
But if they had the pot, they could stay off the alcohol, and they could function. And when they started getting the jitters, getting the withdrawal symptoms from the alcohol, if they could just take a few puffs on a joint, it suppressed the symptoms. And so they could continue to go. They could go back to work the next day. They weren't homesick, and this kind of thing. So
it's just
it's just an overall better situation to have it out in the open where you can control it instead of having this criminal underground, which, again, because the drugs cost so much more, a lot of these people who can't function go out and steal and commit crimes to get the money to get the drugs. Whereas if they had the clinics where they could clean these people up and put them back to work, it would make a huge difference in the crime rate in this country. Of course, if you want to reduce the crime rate by 40%, get the illegals out of here. Get these invaders out of the country. They commit 40% of the crimes in this country. So,
Sheriff Richard Mack, he of course, he spent many years as sheriff and deputies, and he said he came down to the realization that he thought a lot of it needed to be legalized just because officers and police people are losing their lives over these drugs when they could be chasing other things that matter a lot more. Anyway, it's
absolutely. Almost all your drug dealers will carry guns, and if they're facing a second or third offense and they're looking at life in prison, and they'd rather shoot it out with the cops and they'd take a chance on that than spending the rest of their lives in prison. And that's what you're forcing these people into.
Right. Okay. Well, it's food for thought. Thank you, Neil. And I was wrong on what he wanted to talk about. Thank you, Neil. I appreciate it.
Well, you know what? They could talk, but there is no one in this world that will ever convince me that legalizing drugs is a positive for a nation. I think there's other ways in which the situation can be addressed. I think, let's see where these drugs are entering. And you know what? It isn't building a wall along the south border that's going to keep the drugs coming in. Oh. Most of the drugs coming into this country come right through, the border. They drive through in trucks. Yep. Where they have to, I can't recall what those stations are called, but, the border, they drive right through. This is where your drugs are coming through. And why are we protecting, the poppy fields in Afghanistan? Look at that drug trade. How can you let government control something when they're part of the problem? By not fixing and then you have to look to our moral, our society anymore.
So when did it all fall up? I know there's always.
Go ahead.
There's always abusers of alcohol. There's always abusers of drugs. But when did it all fall apart? Because I don't remember personally, but the old Sears and Roebuck catalogs, they had opium. They had those things in there. They weren't illegal back in that day. And Coke really was Coke.
We lost control. No, when we started allowing the schools, when they started targeting the kids, the children, the high schools.
Okay.
Probably 90% of your kids in high schools have experimented with drugs, and this does go back. And I think at one point in time, it was always around, but I'm not so sure it was so targeted to the schools and to the youth and so forth. And anyone who ever talks about legalizing drugs, I ask them, have you had a family member that has been consumed with drugs? 90% of the time, no, they don't. No, I don't know of anyone. Well, it destroys, and I've seen the destruction.
Yeah, I have too. I had an uncle.
And it just wasn't, somebody who marijuana smokes, 3 times a week.
My relatives, my uncle was an alcoholic, and then several of his children followed in that same footstep. They were alcoholics.
Absolutely.
And it just ruined and devastated their families and their lives. And, of course, alcohol is legal. But there's always been abuse. There's always been, there's abuse of food. We have gluttonous. America is overweight. And, we abuse so much because we have so much. And
but it doesn't change your mental capacity.
True.
Sugar can.
Yeah. Get sugar high. Let's go back. Let's go back to the phone.
Sugar can change behavior. Sugar can change people's
it
behavior.
Can. You watch those little kids when they get a sugar high. We have Joe from Arkansas. Joe, how are you today?
How are you all?
I'm doing good.
What you got for us?
Good to hear that. Yeah. Well, I thought Neil had a lot of really good things to say, like he always does, and I wanted to add a few things to it, and that's on the marijuana. I have a friend who's an excellent herbalist and massage therapist and natural healer, and she's also a very devout Christian, and she told me the story of one time she got poisoned, and her digestive system was shut down, and anything that she tried to eat or drink, she just couldn't hold it down. She couldn't digest it. She would throw it right back up. And so this went on for a few weeks, and she was slowly starving to death. And she said then a friend of hers told her, well, smoke some marijuana. That'll give you the munchies. That'll, re-stimulate your digestive system. That'll get you over this problem. And she said, well, I am a Christian medical missionary. I do not smoke marijuana. So she was, so at first she refused, but then she said the friend kept at her to do it. And so finally she gave in and she smoked some marijuana and it worked. That her digestive system got restarted again. It re-stimulated it. She got the munchies. She ate some stuff and was able to keep it down. And she recovered from that. And so now she says that marijuana, she swears that marijuana saved her life. And she also has another problem where she broke her back some years ago falling off a truck and had some metal pins put in the small of her back, way down low, and it causes her tremendous pain. Apparently it rubs against the spinal cord or something like that. And so she's in tremendous pain a lot of the time because of those metal pins in her back. And she's got doctors prescribing her some very terrible pain relievers, which she says, are have very unpleasant side effects. She'd rather not take them, but sometimes the pain gets so bad that she has to take these things, just to keep some sanity, although the side effects are so bad that she doesn't like to take them, so she takes them as little as possible. And she says that marijuana is very helpful with relieving that pain without these side effects, but she does not dare take it because her doctors will refuse to treat her anymore. If they find marijuana in her blood, they will refuse to treat her anymore, and she will not get the medical help that she needs if she does that because it's against the law in the state. So there's one case where the laws against marijuana don't seem to be doing very much good. And a principle that I've noticed consistently is that with freedom, there's problems. And when freedom is restricted in the name of solving these problems always get worse. Like it was like this with alcohol. There's always been a lot of problems with alcohol in this country. So they tried prohibition. There was a grassroots movement led by the Women's Christian Temperance Union to pass the amendment that prohibited alcohol all through the country. And so that was passed. And so instead of solving the problem, it got worse. There came to be a huge black market in selling liquor and smuggling in liquor, and these armed gangs would fight each other for territory to sell liquor in, and there was a huge amount of corruption in the government because the liquor smugglers and the liquor dealers would pay off the politicians to look the other way and all this kind of stuff. And so everything became worse with the situation with alcohol because it was prohibited, and they finally repealed the Prohibition Amendment. And the same thing with marijuana. There was no significant problem with marijuana when it was outlawed. And then about 30 years after it was outlawed, there started to be quite a significant problem with people getting intoxicated with marijuana and wasting a lot of their time, laying around smoking dope instead of getting to work and doing something useful. And as long as they have gone on enforcing the laws, the problems with marijuana have got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So how anyone can make a case to the laws, I'm not saying that smoking marijuana, getting frequently intoxicated on marijuana is a good thing, but I cannot see how anybody can possibly make a case, looking at the history of it, that the laws against it have done any good. So again, freedom doesn't work perfectly, but it works better than anything else. And the same with heroin and cocaine that you were talking about. They used to be legal, and some foolish people would get themselves addicted to them and, kind of mess up their lives. And then since they were banned, and outlawed, the problem has gotten a lot worse because the drug pushers saw that there was a lot of money to be made in getting people addicted to these things and selling them and so on like that. So there's this huge smuggling industry and black markets has sprung up to supply these drugs, and there's been a huge increase in the corruption in government because, so many government officials will take bribes and payoffs and so on like that to look the other way and let the drug dealers do what they want to do and all this kind of stuff. Been a lot of corruption in police departments, because a lot of the police have gotten to dealing drugs too. Like I lived in Pueblo, Colorado one time, and a man told me that his neighbor was a drug dealer, and he would see police cars pull up to his neighbor's house and fill up their trunks of their cars with heroin and cocaine and go out and sell it. And so I don't, again, with freedom, so then that's another case. When people were free to buy heroin and cocaine on the open market from the Sears catalog, whatever, there were problems with it. And since they were banned, since they were outlawed, the problems have all gotten worse. And the same with guns. When people are free to carry guns and have guns, once in a while somebody commits an armed robbery or murder, and there are some problems. But then when guns are banned, like in Chicago and other places where the guns are banned, the problems always get worse. The criminals feel that they have a free hand to prey on the unarmed population, and the problems always get worse. And sometimes
You know what's funny is you mentioned freedom several times, and here we are debating whether we should legalize marijuana, whether we should legalize other drugs and so forth, and yet the one thing that we don't support and fight for is our freedoms, our liberties that we've lost. And, it all goes back. I mean, look, what is the problem? I see the problem as a social problem. I see the problem as, some of the rights taken away from parents. I see a lot of things that involve so why don't we start fighting from that instead of just legalizing everything, thinking it's all going to take care of itself? The problem is only going to get worse unless we address those issues. Those issues aren't being addressed.
And we're headed into a break, and I was going to say, there's a lot of things that have benefits, and we don't seem to look into that because we're all about the money on the legal drugs. We're going into a break. 717-300-1218. You never know which direction this show is going to go to. 717-300-1218. You're listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann in the morning.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188. The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately. and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
And we have returned to listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth. And we're going to go straight to the phone lines. We have Paul in West Virginia. Paul, how are you today?
Well, thank you both, ladies. You're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Do like to hear, following up on what Joe, who always has good comments, had to say, I'd point out that I've looked long and hard. I'm in my 60s. I'm a 100% combat wounded disabled vet. And I've looked hard at these issues as far as legalization. And what I've come up with is I can find no legal clause that allowed Congress to make pot illegal to begin with. It took I just think about this. It took a constitutional amendment to outlaw booze. It took a constitutional amendment to bring it back. So where did they magically then get the power to make a plant forbidden? And it was the oligarchs. This was the start, or right toward the beginning of our country getting taken over by those rich New Yorkers and such, and the bankers. The fellow whose name was Anslinger, who ran the Prohibition, and his father-in-law, I believe it was Mellon of Mellon Bank, who then became Secretary of the Treasury. And when Anslinger lost his job due to the repeal of Prohibition, they moved him over into what became nowadays the DEA, and his first job was to get rid of competition for a bunch of major products, which was the competition was industrial hemp. And they couldn't really do that on its merits because you could make more paper with it than trees. Henry Ford made a car out of it and such. And so they couldn't attack industrial hemp, which steel and nylon and a whole bunch of other products was wanting to compete with. So what they did was they went after the cannabis, which was medicinally used just like cocaine and others, by dentists and other people have been using for years. So I can't find where they had the authority legally and constitutionally to do it to begin with. And as a veteran, after 30 years of being treated for my combat wound and never once being accused of doing something wrong with the analgesics that the VA gave me, I'd spent time out in California and I tried some of their medicinal cannabis products out there with the knowledge of my VA doctors back here, and it was all good. It worked really, really well. I was able to discontinue everything but just an analgesic. However, when I came back, and my doctor was very fine with it, but she had to leave, and the nurse practitioner noticed that I had cannabinoids in my blood and was cut off cold turkey from the same medicine for 30 years, and they won't talk to me about it because I have been labeled, I ran afoul of their national, quote, marijuana policy like I was hanging with Cheech and Chong or something. So it's a way to disempower us. And there's no money in cures, only money in treatments. Well, and in Central America, when I was in the military, I literally saw cocaine being moved by our forces north. And General Noriega went afoul of the CIA by starting his own little side business, and that's why he's still sitting in jail. The top people have always controlled this. The British did it over China and kept control of their population by keeping it illegal, and then you had the Boxer Revolution. Right. So it's the same game, just, turned around a little bit. And until I agree with Joe, people should have the right to kill themselves. Now, they do something out stupid in public, there's the consequences. But, get rid of that forbidden fruit. There's a lot of people around these parts that get into it simply because their opportunity's been limited. But that's not by accident either. Okay. We're running out of time, so I'm going to go to the next caller. Paul, thank you so much for your input. We appreciate your call today. We have Sherry in Kansas. Sherry, how are you today?
Hello, girls.
Hi.
Hi.
I agree with the last two guys. The only thing that the government has a right to do is to regulate when you're using a potential weapon like a car, where you could hurt other people. That's my opinion. But, Melody, I wanted to tell you, I've been looking into alternative health for many years, and I remember reading years ago that the same center of your brain that makes you crave alcohol is what makes you crave sugar. And this article was actually on how glutamine can lessen the cravings for both. And glutamine is an amino acid that your body uses for a lot of things. And it's actually one of the amino acids that make up glutathione, which is a major detox peptide for your liver. But I ran a little experiment on someone that I knew that was drinking alcohol way too early in the day, I thought. And so I gave him some his supplements, and I gave him some glutamine in those supplements. And this is just anecdotal, but he would not start drinking as early in the day when I gave him the glutamine.
That's interesting. All right.
And glutamine, if you have a leaky gut, it helps heal your gut because it's something that as your food is digesting in your stomach and while your small intestine, it actually pulls it out of the food before it gets absorbed in your bloodstream to help heal your gut. But it's also good for your memory, girls, and that's one thing I use it for.
Well, we could all use that. Sherry, thank you so much for your call. I appreciate it. We know that there's a lot of supplements and a lot of alternatives that are good for us, and more people are researching and checking that out. And Melody, we had what was her name? Wendy Wilson on with Power.
Yes, Wendy. She's on with me this afternoon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. And when we talk, and she talked about the leaky gut and some of the things that are going on, and I've got a girlfriend that's what she does. She doesn't go to medical doctors anymore. She goes to alternative holistic physician, and she drives from Missouri. She goes to Oklahoma to see her doctor, and literally saved her life. Medical doctors, they didn't know what to do for her. And so there is a lot to be said for this alternative. And,
absolutely.
I think the hemp or the marijuana, we know that they have come a long way with the medications, with treatments for different things. And one thing is epilepsy with children and other things. And if it can help with addiction, that needs to be looked into. And I know that, it's all about money. You and I always talk about that. It all goes back to the almighty dollar, and that's no different than the pharmaceutical industry. They are all about the money. The FDA approves this and approves that, and then a year later they say, well, it's killing people. We're going to take it off the market. Next thing you know, they bring it back on again. And so anyway, it's all about money, and we have to kind of recognize that as a matter
no doubt about it. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. But I think we'll all be smoking that wacky weed if Oprah decides to run for president. She said that the one thing that would make her run for president is there's only one thing that would make her run for president in 2020, and that's if she went into prayer and God told her to do so.
Oh. Well, Joy Behar won't like that. She thinks somebody's mentally ill if they talk to God. If he tells them to do something.
So her prayer, she told everybody, I always thought prayer was to be, personal, but she said in the People magazine that, God, if you think I'm supposed to run, you got to tell me, and if it has to be so clear that not even I can miss it. And she hasn't gotten that. So if she gets it, she'll be running. Oh, good Lord. I can't even believe we have to wait.
And everybody will go to the rallies because she's going to get free cars at the rallies.
Free cars at the rallies.
Cars at the rallies. If you attend a Oprah rally, you'll get a free car.
So we're going to have Oprah running. We're going to have Michelle running.
Oh, you're mean. Yeah.
No. I'm not mean at all. We're going to have Michelle running, Oprah winning, Oprah Winfrey running, hopefully not winning.
I don't think Oprah will run.
I never thought she would, but
I don't think she will. I could be wrong. I don't think Michelle will either.
I can't imagine.
I think she'll run for senator before she'll run for president.
What I do know is when I think these women will get behind someone, and they will be very powerful.
That's kind of the way it is.
Because they have the money.
Mm-hmm. So. They do have the money. I hear the music, and it's playing Free by Zac Brown Band, one of my favorite songs. And we want to be free. We want to be free. We want to protect our liberties, and that's why we're here every day with you. Use discount gold and silver trading. We didn't even talk about gold and silver today, but Melody's going to jump over to CSC Talk Radio, so turn your dial over to 12160, and you'll get to hear us again, and we'll talk about something totally different. You've been listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann in the morning. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll be back tomorrow.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.